You may not know this, as I don't talk about it very often, but my dad was a bus driver. Seriously though, I grew up on a South London estate, and I'm proud of my working class roots. I'm not going to lie, life was hard when I was a kid. Along with my sister and 6 brothers, 10 of us were crammed into a 3-bed council flat in Tooting. We slept in bunk beds and only had 1 heater in the front room. My parents worked all hours of day and night to make ends meet, so we all pitched in with the housework. But despite the difficulties we faced, I have many fond memories from my childhood. From gathering around the telly as a family to watch Match of the Day, to working my Saturday job at Peter Jones' department store. I talk about my upbringing because ultimately, it's these experiences that have informed my politics, steered me towards a life of public service, and strengthened my resolve to make sure ours is a city that works for all Londoners, rich and poor, young and old, white, black and Asian. As mayor, I've spent every day working tirelessly to give back to the city that's given so much to me and my family. I'm proud that my administration has started building more council homes than in any year since 1984. And it's been tough on crime and its causes. Proud we're cleaning up our toxic air, which hits the poorest children in the most deprived areas the hardest. And I'm proud that we've frozen TfL fares for 5 years and introduced the Hopper bus fare. Policies that have made commuting more affordable for millions of Londoners and made the world of difference to those on the lowest incomes. Of course, there's no escaping the fact that the last year has been difficult and distressing. The coronavirus pandemic continues to cast a long shadow, making life harder for millions of Londoners. And yet, amid it all, the way in which our city has responded to this crisis has been truly inspiring. At a time when we've needed to stay physically apart, we've seen volunteers spring into action and our amazing communities pull together. Londoners have refused to walk by on the other side, while our heroic key workers have helped save lives and keep our city moving. Indeed, their actions have been a source of light for all of us in dark times, and give me the faith that we can continue to move forward as a city. So as your mayor, I will continue to focus on creating the high quality and better paid jobs Londoners deserve, helping people retrain if they need to, and attracting investment into our city from around the world. I truly believe our city can and will be an even better place to live after this pandemic than it was before. London gave me the opportunity to go from a council estate to be mayor of the greatest city in the world. And I'm determined to repay that debt by standing up for London and by doing everything in my power to create that fairer, greener, more equal city we all want and know is possible.
Hello and welcome everybody to the event today. I'm so pleased to be here and to stand up for our fantastic candidate and Mayor of London. And I'm so pleased that so many of you have made it to the event today and are on this call, and hopefully will be with us throughout this event and afterwards to do our phone banking afterwards. I mean, it's an absolute honour and a privilege to be here and to be asked by Sadiq to help with his re-election campaign to be our Labour Mayor of London. And I want to pay tribute to Sadiq for all that he's done. His record is one of delivering for Londoners and standing up for Londoners. And not just standing up for Londoners, but he also stood up for Greater Manchester alongside our mayor in Greater Manchester when the Tories wanted to shortchange us in Greater Manchester as well. So he's been an absolute role model across the United Kingdom and the world, as well as doing his absolute best by the people of London. And as he said in the video, the great introduction, more new council houses were started in London last year than in any year in the last 4 decades. Air pollution reduced by a third, a 500% increase in cycle lanes, and introducing the Hopper fare and over 5 years freezing TfL fares. This makes a real difference to Londoners and to our communities. Over 1,000 extra police on our streets and record sums invested in our young people. Sadiq, we're proud of you because unlike the Tories who promise the world and deliver nothing, it's just all words, you've been there for us and have delivered for the people of London. And you've shown the difference that Labour makes to people's lives when we're in power, even in the face of Tory austerity and dealing with the COVID crisis. Like me, Sadiq didn't come from a wealthy background. The son of immigrants, brought up on a council estate in a council house in Tooting with 7 siblings, slightly more than me, Sadiq, but I'm sure it was as lively as our house was. But he had to work hard to get on in life. But most of all, he had opportunity and he had support along the way. That's why I know that his experiences growing up and the opportunities London gave him to succeed are what drives him forward today to make London a place where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential. Because those values are the same values that drive me and drive all of us in our great Labour movement. So from a kid from a council estate in Stockport to a kid from a council estate in South London, let me just say that we're proud of you, Sadiq. But you know, we need to be honest about the choice facing Londoners in May, because that choice could not be clearer. It's between Sadiq, who is standing up for London and is committed to building a better, fairer and more equal city as we recover from this pandemic, or Boris Johnson's Tory candidate. When the Tory candidate says that teenage girls who choose to get pregnant as a career choice, that isn't just an attack on me or all women. What it shows is that it doesn't share London's values. And what about him saying that working class families will just spend social security support on drugs? The only people with a problem managing money are Tory ministers, wasting billions of taxpayers' money on a failed test and trace system, an unsafe PPE, and then spending £30 on food parcels that are worth a £5. And when he says people from different backgrounds will turn London into a crime-riddled cesspool, and says that Muslim and Hindu people rob Britain of its community, not only does he attack people from ethnic minority backgrounds, he proves that he's the wrong person to lead a city that is rightly, so rightly proud of its diversity. When he takes money from super rich donors caught up in offshore tax scandals to pump out fake news leaflets, he shows he's not fit for office. But do you know what? What else can we expect from a man who slashed funding for our police and youth services as a Downing Street crime advisor and then complains about the impact of his own austerity cuts? So in May, we have an opportunity to deliver a Labour mayor. So just like in 1945, we can recover from this crisis based on our Labour values. Labour values of a fairer, greener and more equal city. A city that cherishes and celebrates its diversity. Deeds, not words. We owe it to our key workers, all of those who have lost their lives, and everyone who has sacrificed so much throughout this crisis to build a better future out of the ashes. That starts with sending Sadiq back to City Hall to finish what he started. And that starts with all of us hitting the phones and organising phone banks and speaking to Londoners, starting with London Calling event that we've got after this launch. And hopefully you're all going to be part of that. And I know some have already been on the phones already. And thank you so much for all that you're doing in our great movement. But it also starts with you all speaking to your friends and family, signing them up for a postal vote so that they can vote by post, and we need to remind people that there's a massive election happening in less than 10 weeks' time. So now, my friends, I want to introduce to you someone who's absolutely fantastic, a fellow Unison member, but equally a really, really courageous, great frontline key worker, a nurse who has been working throughout this COVID crisis. Anne, thank you for all that you have done for us, and the floor is now yours. Thanks, Anne.
Hi, Angela. Thank you. My name is Anne Horsfall. I work as a mental health, a qualified nurse with NHS Trust. Over the years, I have seen firsthand the impact that COVID-19 has had countless families across London. I have also seen the immense strain it has placed on our NHS and the people working in it. I love my job, and the reward that I get, I'm being able to help other people every day. But the last year has been immensely difficult for me and my colleagues. Services have been stretched. I've seen working people harder, we're working harder. Countless of my colleagues have caught the virus. Some even lost their lives. Thankfully, there is now a light at the end of the tunnel because of the fantastic work of the scientists on the vaccine. But the NHS is still incredibly busy with the impact of the pandemic. And in my work, we will be dealing with the mental health consequences for years and even decades to come. The Labour Party has created the NHS in 1945. The Labour Party has always properly funded healthcare whenever we are in government, only to see it cut when the Tories are in power. In the aftermath of the pandemic, we must do more to support our frontline NHS workers who have seen the horrors of the virus up close to ensure that NHS can continue to be there for everyone that needs it. Only the Labour Party will do that. And in London, I know that Sadiq is standing up for the key workers like me by building more council homes, cleaning up our air and lobbying for support. We need Sadiq to be in power so that to support the NHS. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
And thank you so much for everything that you do, not just on the front line, but in your union as well. And, you know, and it's an absolute disgrace that the government in their budget have literally, they clapped you all year, but clapping doesn't pay the bills. They've treated you disgracefully. But we love you, and thank you so much for being here, for Sadiq's launch, and for everything that you've done in the last year, for looking after us all. You're an absolute star, and I can't wait to see you in the flesh again. The next speaker that I want to introduce is another amazing woman of our movement who's been doing a huge amount of community and voluntary work within her community, but also has been a contact tracer throughout this challenging pandemic that we've had. So I want to introduce Donna Lewis, who's going to address us. Thanks, Donna.
Hello, thank you for having me today. My name is Donna, and I am a young Londoner living and working in Lewisham. Like many others, I have been deeply impacted by the pandemic, and I'm really worried about the long-term impact it's going to have on my generation. I spent many months this year looking for a long-term and secure job. I even worked as a contact tracer for the NHS Test and Trace for a while. It's such a relief to say that I finally found a job and will be starting as a work coach for the Department of Work and Pensions this month. But so many of my friends have lost their jobs and are still looking for work. And to be honest, it is really scary. It's young people like me that are especially at risk of falling into long-term unemployment as a result of this pandemic. Many have experienced prolonged disruption to their education, have been disproportionately impacted by the downturn in the hospitality sector and are graduating into the toughest job markets in years. We need a clear plan and targeted support to ensure that no young person is left behind as we begin to recover from this pandemic, just like the 1945 Labour government delivered after the Second World War. The Labour Party is the only party with the ambition necessary to build a fairer, greener, safer London after the pandemic. And I know that Sadiq will always stand up for Londoners just like me by putting jobs and young people's futures at the heart of his vision for London. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna. And, you know, you are an absolute inspiration, I'm sure, to many young people across London, and not just London, to our lot as well in Greater Manchester. So we love you dearly. And all that community work that you've done as well just shows that, you know, the power of bringing people together and supporting each other. You get things done. So thank you so much for being here. And now you've heard from, you know, like the three dynamic, amazing women. And that's cool. That's how we do things in the Labour Party. But it's my absolute honour and privilege to introduce you to Council Estate Sadiq, who is now bossing it in the best city capital in the world, Sadiq Khan.
Well, thank you very much for that very kind introduction, Angela, and thank you for everything you're doing as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. It means so much to us to have your support as we launch our election campaign. I also want to thank Anne and Donna for speaking so eloquently about their stories which remind us just how much London has suffered throughout this pandemic, but also of the incredible bravery shown by so many. On behalf of all Londoners, thank you. When I was first elected mayor in 2016, no one could have predicted the challenges we'd be confronted with over the following 5 years. The horrific fire at Grenfell Tower, a series of cowardly terrorist attacks, Brexit, three prime ministers, constant government austerity, and now this awful pandemic which has cost so many lives and livelihoods. But what's constantly given me hope during these difficult times is the extraordinary way Londoners have pulled together through it all. The brave police officers who ran to confront danger during a terrorist attack whilst guiding others to safety. The Londoners who opened their hearts and their homes to the residents of Grenfell. The small acts of kindness that millions of Londoners have shown to neighbours, friends and strangers during this pandemic. And of course, the heroic NHS staff and key workers who've saved countless lives and kept this city moving in our hour of greatest need. This incredible London spirit fuels my optimism about the future of our city and my conviction that with the right choices, we can ensure London is an even better city after the pandemic than it was before. A city that's fairer, greener and safer, and that works for all Londoners. And it's that better future which is on the ballot paper at this election. I grew up in a London that was still fundamentally shaped by the great reforming Labour government of 1945, a government that not only rebuilt our country from the ashes of the Second World War, but established a new and lasting social contract between the state and the British people. Clement Attlee understood that we owed it to those who'd suffered and sacrificed so much to create a fairer and more equal nation after the war. The London that was revived in those post-war years is the London that gave me everything when I was growing up. I am the son of immigrants, one of 8 children, and I was raised on a council estate. Life wasn't always easy in those early days, but London gave me a council home in South London, which meant we always had a roof over our heads, a great education with fantastic teachers, the union-backed job my dad was able to secure as a bus driver, the hard work of both my parents, and London's open and inclusive values, which told me that the world was my oyster. London gave me the opportunities I needed to go from being that council estate kid with big dreams to becoming a human rights lawyer, to running a business, and then to go from representing my local community as an MP to being elected as the mayor of the greatest city on earth. A job which is truly the honor of my life and which humbles me every single day. My story and these experiences have been fundamental to shaping my outlook today and my aspirations and ambitions for London tomorrow. Because I believe that everyone, regardless of their race, their gender, their faith, disability, class, sexual orientation, or background, should have the same chances I was given. Not just to survive, but to thrive. And that's why my overarching mission for London is to ensure that all Londoners get the opportunities that our city gave to me and my family. It's the idea that if you do the right thing and work hard, there should be a helping hand to lead you along the path to fulfilling your potential. A powerful social contract that Londoners deserve in a post-COVID world. Just like Labour did in 1945, I believe we can grab this moment with both hands to improve our city and the quality of life for all Londoners. As a start, a top priority for my second term will be jobs, jobs, jobs. This means supporting London's businesses to create thousands of well-paid jobs and protecting those that already exist. It means helping Londoners to retrain, skill up, and find work. And it means persistently banging the drum for London, both at home and abroad, to attract the jobs, tourism, and investment we need to get our city firing on all cylinders again. We simply must not allow anyone to be left behind after this pandemic. And by working with businesses and with the right support from the government, I'm hopeful we can get a V-shaped recovery for our city, which gets the 300,000 Londoners who've lost their jobs back into work as quickly as possible. To that end, today, I'm making 3 commitments as part of my wider jobs plan for a second term. First, we'll invest an extra £5 million to help attract people back to central London. Second, we'll maximise the £18 billion spent by the Greater London Authority budget to help support job creation, job retention, and London's wider recovery. And third, we'll transform small business support across our city. I'll also ensure that we take this moment to act decisively to boost our green economy, create green jobs, and make our city greener, cleaner, and more sustainable. Because we can't afford to move from one health and economic crisis to another. So I promise to continue taking world-leading action to clean up our toxic air, to make it easier and safer for Londoners to walk and cycle, and to lead the fight against the climate emergency. Over the last 5 years, we've taken huge strides across all these areas, from reducing air pollution by more than a third, to delivering a 5-fold increase in the length of protected cycle lanes. But there's still much more to do, which is why I'll put delivering a Green New Deal for London at the heart of our recovery. Another fundamental part of my vision for a better London, just as it was for Labour in 1945, is fixing the housing crisis. In the first term, we've laid the right foundations, starting to build more new council homes last year than in any year since 1983. But this is just the beginning. In a second term, we'll work to eradicate rough sleeping for good, campaign for rent controls, and deliver the genuinely affordable homes Londoners need, not the luxury penthouse apartments still prioritised by the Tories. Keeping Londoners safe will, of course, always remain a top priority for me. Thanks to our strategy of being both tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime, we have started to see violence fall. But both as mayor and as a father of two young Londoners, I'm concerned about it beginning to rise again when lockdown is lifted. That's why I'll continue to invest record amounts from City Hall, not only in more police officers on top of the extra 1,000 we've already put on the front line since 2016, but in more positive opportunities for young Londoners too. Finally, I'll always stand up for London's values, which I've never shied away from defending, whether against Brexit, Donald Trump, or Boris Johnson. The election on May the 6th is a two-horse race between me and the Tory candidate. And the choice couldn't be starker. A mayor who'll stand up for London's values, work tirelessly to create a better city that works for all Londoners, where no one is left behind, and fight for the investment we need in the face of the most anti-London government in living memory. Or the Tory candidate who simply doesn't share London's values and would put our hopes of a better future at risk. I'm sure you'll have seen some of the insulting, misogynistic, and regressive things he said over the years. These are certainly not my values. These are certainly not London's values, and these are certainly not values that have any place in a modern, inclusive, and progressive city like ours. So let me finish with this. Just like in 1945, this election is about how we choose to respond in the aftermath of an historic crisis, and whether or not we should strive to build back better for the sake of everyone who's lost their lives, worked on the front line, or suffered to keep us safe. I'm convinced that it is possible to rebuild and breathe new life into our city as a fairer, greener, and safer place where our values are protected, cherished, and celebrated. And I truly believe that I'm the only candidate who can help deliver exactly that. So today, I'm asking for all Londoners to vote for that better London we all want and deserve by voting for me and for Labour on May the 6th. Thank you.
London, the mayoral election is happening in May.
This is your chance to re-elect
my good friend.
It's my good friend. It's my good friend.
My good friend.
My good friend.
My good friend Sadiq, who has continued to stand up for all Londoners
On issues including COVID, jobs, air quality, housing, transport, policing, and investing in our young people.
As well as promoting London as a city full of openness, acceptance, and respect.
Please make sure you get your postal vote today so that you can vote safely from home.
And make sure Sadiq is re-elected as Labour's Mayor of London.
Sign up for a postal vote today at votelondon.labour.org.uk.
Thank you so much, Sadiq. And did you get the message, everyone? Postal vote sign up for a postal vote, really important. Now, I know that Zoom launches are not as great as us all being in the room and saying how amazing everyone is, but I felt the energy, Sadiq, of what you bring and what you're going to bring back as the newly elected mayor again in May, when we all get our postal votes and get our friends and family to do that as well, because Sadiq needs those votes and we need to get out on the phone banking and campaign in the COVID safe way and make sure that we re-elect Sadiq. And we're going to have a couple of questions now, so bear with us. We've got a little Q&A, and the first person who's going to ask their question, hopefully this will work seamlessly and there won't be any problems and it won't end up on "it's all right" on the night sort of thing. We've got Mete Coburn, who's going to ask a question of Sadiq.
Hi Sadiq, great speech and great to hear your vision for young Londoners and for Londoners generally. My question is about young people, and we know that young people have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. We know it's, amplified and exposed a lot of inequalities across our city and different communities. And what will you do as mayor to address the inequalities faced by young people?
Mete, thanks for your question. It's lovely to see you, albeit virtually. Really nice to see you. Look, you raise a really important question, and I worry about the intergenerational inequality you're talking about. Let me tell you about what I call the British promise. The British promise is very simple. It's that the next generation will always do better than the current generation. And this is the first generation in hundreds of years where I'm not sure that's going to be the case. And that's why you're spot on to ask this question about what we're going to do to help young people. You'll be aware of how you've been let down with the exams fiasco, with the universities fiasco, with the schools opening and closing, and so forth. So there's three big areas, Mete, where I want to help young Londoners. Firstly, to make sure we build genuinely affordable homes for Londoners that you can afford to rent or buy, rather than homes built as gold bricks for investors overseas. I've nothing against foreigners. Some of my best friends and family are foreigners. We've got to stop building homes for foreigners for investment. So more council homes, more affordable homes for young people like you, as well as real plans to change the laws around rent control. The second area that's really important is in relation to jobs. You and I both know too many young Londoners have lost their jobs during the pandemic over the last year. 1 out of 5 people who are furloughed are young people who have lost their jobs now. And that's why a central piece of my second term is going to be jobs, retraining, upskilling, to make sure that we can have young people not be in the missed generation as they were of the 1980s. And the third area that's really important, Mete, is to give young people constructive things to do. So over the last 10 years, we've seen, because of government cuts, youth centres closing down, youth workers losing their jobs, and young people having nothing constructive to do. I'm going to carry on investing in young people, not just the Young Londoners Fund, which has seen more than a £70 million worth of investment. It's given more than 110,000 young people constructive things to do around culture, around education and sports. I'll carry on investing in young people going forward.
That's great. Thanks Sadiq. And just a quick one to say, just our pledge to you from Hackney is that we're going to get the highest turnout for you from Hackney.
Mate, I love your background. Look at that. I mean, I feel like underdressed compared to what's going on. You've got so much bling going on there. I don't even know where you are, but it looks good.
I have to, Angela, because unfortunately I've got a big family, and otherwise you will see my siblings running around on the screen. So I thought I had to get to the office for this.
Fair play. Thanks for your question, mate. Thank you so much. And I think we've got the next question from Carlos Corenda. Carlos, have we got you? I think I can just about see you. You need to put your camera on. Just give him a sec if he isn't. I know what he wants to ask. I mean, Sadiq, can I ask you, how will you support the LGBTQI venues across London? What are you doing to support that?
No, thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Angela, for the really important question. Look, first things first. One of the great things about London, and for me it's a strength, not a weakness, is our diversity. And it's really important that you're able to be who you want to be and love who you want to love. And I think people from the LGBTQ plus community shouldn't be tolerated. They should be respected, celebrated, and embraced. And we've got to be allies of the LGBTQ plus community. Now, in the 8 years before I became mayor, one of the heartbreaking things is more than half of the venues for LGBTQ plus communities had been closed down, more than half. So we did a number of things in City Hall. I appointed London's first ever night czar. We thought about calling the night czar a night mayor. We'd had one of those for the last 8 years called Boris Johnson. And so what Amy LeMay's been doing, working with Justine Simons, my deputy mayor for culture, creative industries, is supporting these venues. We've set up a culture at risk team who've supported the venues and invested in them during this difficult time. And so the steep decline plateaued out and they were starting to go up. But during the last year, they've had real difficulties. So what I've done, Angela, is put aside funding to support cultures at risk and ring fence some of that for the LGBTQ plus community. It's really important. There are safe spaces for those communities to enjoy themselves. And I'm looking forward to when the lockdown is over, going back to the Royal Vauxhall Tavern and having a great night as I've had many a time in the past.
Sadiq, I hope I'm getting an invite, mate.
We should probably both say La.
Absolutely. I don't know if you've seen, I had my La t-shirt on at PMQ.
I was green with envy, Angela.
You should be. You've got an invite to Manchester anytime you want, mate. I think we've got Ross on now. Ross Houston is going to ask a question. Oh, there you are, Ross. You're on mute, though. Unmute yourself. Oh, glasses are on. It's serious.
Yes, it's showing my age there. Thank you, Sadiq, an inspiring launch and inspiring words from you, Angela. My question is, in a post-COVID world, how can we make London the greenest global city?
Ross, that's a cracking question. It's lovely to see you, if only virtually. You're spot on. What we've got to avoid doing at all costs is a return to business as usual. I really hate using the word opportunity when it comes to this awful pandemic that is COVID. But there's an opportunity for us to make sure that we use this awful virus and what's happened as a way not to entrench the challenges of the past, but to build back in a greener way. So a central plank of our recovery, Ross, is to have a green recovery. A Green New Deal will be a central plank of our second term. We need to make sure we build on the work done in the first term, the world's first national park city, the progress we've made. We're one of the first cities in the world that has a climate change action plan that's been marked by others as being world leading, but also continue to make progress in relation to improving the air quality. And the other big opportunity, Ross, is COP26 comes to the UK later on this year, being the great city of Glasgow. We've got to make sure over the course of the next few weeks and months, cities have a role to play in some of the solutions in relation to the climate crisis. Ross, we've got a choice. We can either be the last generation that doesn't get it, or the first generation that gets it and find some of the solutions to the challenges created by some of the things we've done and our forefathers and foremothers have done as well. That's why it's really important that one of the ways out of this is a green way out going forward.
Ross, you're on mute again, mate, but I don't know about you, but what heartens me actually is that London's been a world leader in this under Sadiq's leadership. And when you hear him talk about not just aspirations, but actually what he's done, it gives confidence, doesn't it, that we're actually going to do the work that needs to be done.
It's an inspiring vision, really is.
Thanks for your question, Ross. It was a really important question. I think we've got Katie Thompson next, who wants to ask a question. Just give it a sec. Here we go. Have we got you, Katie?
Yeah, apologies. Just
hi, honey.
Hello.
Never apologise, hon. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing me on to ask my question. And I got a little bit of competition going on with Meta because I believe Waltham Forest will have the biggest comeback, but we'll see. So my question is in relation to young people as well. I'm thankful for the investment you have given to young people because my programme is one of the first ones to actually be awarded from the Young Londoners Fund. But my question is in relation to the mental health support that young people have not been getting over the past year. So as we both know, or everyone knows, that suicide rates have had a stark increase, like August having the biggest suicide rates more than coronavirus kills. and young people have had poor mental health and a low sense of support during this pandemic. And I don't feel as though this has been brought to the forefront of issues that's really affecting our local communities, or that young people felt the comfort and confidence to really access these supports. So my question to you would be, what action would you take to addressing these concerns and supporting our young people with their mental health?
Okay, that's such an important question. Thank you for asking it. And thank you for the work you're doing as well. Look, I'm with Angela. I was really angry at the budget yesterday. The Chancellor didn't mention the NHS once, not once. And we know that mental health has been for decades the Cinderella service in the NHS. And I've got to be honest, Katie, I've got skin in the game because I've suffered mental ill health over the last year, directly attributable to the pandemic. So I may not be young, but I know what young people are going through, and I'm the father of 2 children. And so we've got to address the issue of mental ill health and talk about it. We've got to get rid of the stigma around talking about this really important issue. It upsets me when I see the numbers of young people killing themselves. What we do in City Hall is a number of things to address this issue. The Zero Suicide campaign is really important. I've been trained in relation to suicide prevention. We're encouraging more and more Londoners to be trained in relation to suicide prevention. We're also training, Katie, more mental health first aiders, really important in places of work, as well as in schools, FE colleges and universities as well. We've invested in a great scheme that Phil Glanville, the Mayor of Hackney, is one of the co-chairs in relation to something called Thrive London. For those people watching this who don't know what Thrive London is, look it up. It's a really good initiative, grassroots up, Katie, that involves young people in relation to some of the solutions to the challenges we face. And also, Katie, we've set up this great app called the Good Thinking app as well. One of the things that I'm so inspired to do more in a second term for young people is because I worry that many young people won't get the life chances that I had because of the helping hand. And that's why, Katie, I talk about the British promise, the next generation doing better than you did. And I really want to make sure that during my second term, I do even more to help your generation, because if we don't invest in you, we're going to regret this in decades to come. And my promise to you, Katie, is not only in issues that aren't popular, like mental ill health, but in other issues that affect young people, I carry on listening to people like you, but also addressing some of the challenges you face. So you're part of the solution, not part of the problem.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for that, Sadiq. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. And like Sadiq said, thanks for bossing it and being part of our, great movement and doing what you do in your community as well. And just making us look really old as well, kind of, because you look amazing. So I was young once. Sadiq was as well, once upon a time. I'm a granny now. It's what the movement does to you. We have one last question, and hopefully we've got Vanishka Solanki on. Hi, Han.
Hi, thank you, Sadiq and Angela. A really inspiring launch. I'm a councillor in Redbridge and also the Cabinet Member for Housing and Homelessness. As you know, council homes are very important to Londoners. How many have you built in your first term as Mayor?
Well, Venetia, firstly, thanks for the incredible work you do in Redbridge, and your council doing a great job. I'm disappointed you didn't compete with Waltham Forest and Hackney for trying to get the most votes for me on May the 6th. We'll have to have a word afterwards, Venetia, about why that was. But look, it's a really important issue that you raised. I talked in my speech about the importance of building genuinely affordable homes Londoners can afford, rather than gold bricks for foreign investors. And like I say, I've nothing against foreigners. Some of my best friends and family are foreigners. And that's why you're right to ask about council homes, because affordable homes is, to many people, was something you didn't believe in. And that's because the definition the previous mayor had was a dodgy one. They called an affordable home one that cost £500,000 to buy, or 80% of market value to rent. So we ditched that dodgy definition, and we have a new one. An affordable home is one that's a council home, a home where you pay a London living rent, a third of average earnings, or shared ownership, part buy, part rent with £5,000 deposit. And the good news is that last year we began building more council homes than any year since 1983. And good councils like yours, Venetia, are working with us to have more and more council homes going forward. Many councils, had their planning departments and home building departments hollowed out over the previous 20 years. So you've taken time to increase your capacity, and I'm really optimistic going forward we'll have even more council homes fit for our heroes who've done such an amazing job during this awful pandemic.
Thank you so much. And I really look forward to seeing the more affordable homes for Londoners. Thank you.
Thanks,
Great, stay safe.
Thanks for everything that you're doing over in Redbridge as well. Hopefully I'll be able to come and visit again very, very soon in person. That brings our Q&A to an end, but just before we go and close this event and go on to the phone banking, the London Calling phone banking, I'm just going to give the final word to Sadiq. Sadiq, would you like to say anything before we close?
Well, can I say, Angela, it's been a pleasure to see you, and thank you so much for joining the launch today. I just want to make one point to everyone who's joined the call today. I want you to remind yourselves why you joined the Labour Party. It's because of our values. Our values are we can achieve far more together than we can by ourselves. Our values are we are the brother and sister, we are the keeper of our brother and sister. Our values are we don't walk on the other side of the road, but we can only put our values into practice by winning elections. In 2016, we made history by winning back London for Labour from the Tories after 8 years of Tory rule. The election of May the 6th is going to be a tough two-horse race. It's a turnout election. I need your help to win on May the 6th. You are our secret weapon. So thank you for what you've done over the past 5 years, but more importantly, thank you for the work you're going to do over the next 62 days. Thank you, Angela.
Thanks, Sadiq. And in the chat as well, there's the link for the London Calling event. This is what it means. I mean, it's great to be on there and I love it. I mean, I do love being in the flesh as well, to be honest. I can't wait for us to be able to meet safely in person again. But as Sadiq said, it's so important that we get on those phones now and we're able to support getting our voices out. And, I've done quite a lot of phone banking recently, and people are just really pleased that you're ringing them and asking about them, because there are a lot of people, as Sadiq said himself, and thank you, Sadiq, for sharing your own personal experience. Lots of people are going through a very difficult time at the moment. So phone banking is a way of making them feel that they're special and that we care about them as well. So please get onto the phone bank and help over the next couple of months to get Sadiq back as our Labour Mayor, because the alternative doesn't bear thinking about, quite honestly. So thank you, Sadiq, for everything you've done for London and for us in Greater Manchester, by the way, when you stood up for us as well. We won't forget you there. There's always a place in our bars and in our city for you. And thank you, everybody, for your attendance at this event. Take care, keep safe, and I'll speak to you and see you again soon.
Hello. Hi there, I'm Sadiq. No, it really is. How are you?